Hello everyone and welcome back to another video here on Sam's Crafted Castle, and today we are doing the second part of the video I did last week with my basic supplies, and this is my sort of expanded supply list. So maybe, you know, you have a friend who started card making and you want to like share with their next level, so I don't know. But this is like my basic plus. Like if you want to go beyond what you need just to get started and look into some other things, this is what I would recommend. So the first thing is blending brushes. You don't need like all the storagey stuff and whatever that I have there, but blending brushes or some kind of blending tool in general. I'm going to show you a few different options in this video, but if I had to recommend one, my recommendation would be blending brushes. I find them the easiest to use. There's also these blending tools. They come in round and a rectangular shape. There was a time before everyone was really like using the blending brushes that these were the blending tool that sort of reigned supreme. But now that blending brushes are a thing, holy cow, are they way easier. There's also similar to these blending tools, there's sponge daubers and things you can get that also work well for blending. So there's a lot of different products available at different price points and things like that. But if I could only get one, I would either save or whatever until I could get the blending brushes, because I think they're the easiest to use and I have the best luck with them. But you can kind of see how you use them there, and just but the blending foams, that's what they're called, the blending tools / blending foams. You can just dab it on your ink pad and blend it, and then the same kind of thing with the brushes, which I'm going to show you right now. You just kind of rub the brush in the ink pad and then you blend with them, for lack of a better thing. Why did I use my red brush on the pink ink though? That's embarrassing. Generally you want to have some kind of you want to have a brush for each color family. So you want red, orange, yellow, green, blue, but you do not need a brush for every color. Same kind of thing with the blending foams, although I do tend to do foams for every color because I only use those for my distress inks and I barely use them. I usually just use my color family brushes. There are some ink types that you would want to use separate brushes and things for, but that's extra, if you will. There's also these paper pouncers things. These are kind of new, probably like the newest blending brush situation to the world. You kind of pounce them like so, and then they're like okay. They're not my favorite. They don't work well with stencils. I haven't really tried them with ink blending, I'm not gonna lie, yet, but I'm still learning them. I shouldn't say they're not my favorite yet, because I'm still very much learning and exploring them. And then this is sort of a bonus option, which is it's called the ink stand, and it's basically a stand for your ink pads. So it comes in a few different flavors. I just pulled this one out because it was a very last minute, like I was recording and went, oh, I should show an ink stand. And if you think ink blending is going to be something, or stenciling, which is this next topic, is something you're going to be really interested in, I recommend looking at an ink stand. They're relatively inexpensive. It's been a while since I've bought mine, but I'm pretty sure they're like super affordable, and they really make life a lot easier because you don't have to hold your ink cubes or your pads and stuff doesn't move around on you. It's very, very helpful. And you don't lose covers either, because I have a habit of losing the tops to my ink pads if I don't put them in an inkstand. Next up is stencils, which we're flipping through here. There's a lot of different options with stencils. Stencils are great additions to your stamp, ephemera, sticker collection, whatever you're using for your focal images. You can find very big stencils to make very nice focal images for you. They're also great for backgrounds, and it kind of builds on this ink blending thing that we've been talking about. So they're also, again, something that's relatively inexpensive and can really boost what you can do with your card making. And this is layering stencils. So another section, subheading of stencils is layering stencils, and these things are magical. They've gotten really, really popular within the last few years, but if you are someone who's not comfortable or confident in coloring, layering stencils are the way to go. You can obviously get great backgrounds out of them too. There's some really great background layering stencils, but your stencils could substitute your pattern paper at some point too if you wanted to do that route. But like this one is a newer one that I have from Gina K Designs, and that makes a really, really, really pretty like floral bouquet, for lack of a better word. And I love it, and it's great, and I'm really, really itching to pull it back out again, if I'm being honest. But yeah, floor laying stencils are great. They're, like I said, if you don't want to get super into stamps or something or whatever, layering stencils, they do tend to be a bit more expensive just because there's more plastic and stencil layers involved in them, if that makes sense. But still, it's very, very nice. Next up is embossing powder. This is a lot of people's gateway drug into card making, because embossing is really, really cool. Although I don't show you how to do any on screen, but you can find all kinds of videos. So look up heat embossing, because we're going to talk about dry embossing a little bit later. But heat embossing, this is a little bit more of an investment, because you do need to purchase some additional tools to be able to do this, including that blue thing I just showed you, which is called a heat gun, and you basically plug it in and it gets really, really hot. Can you heat emboss with a hairdryer or something? That a lot of people get asked a lot of the time. Not recommended. That's all I'm going to say. You're probably going to, it doesn't quite get hot enough to melt the plastic that is the embossing powder. So this is my embossing powder collection that you're looking at here. And I've just been showing you some of the additional tools that you need to do heat embossing. So you need their heat gun, which is that blue thing. I've shown you a couple different things that are anti-static powder bags of varying models and sizes and things. That just helps your embossing powder not stick to your cardstock. Essential? Technically no. Extremely helpful and going to save you a lot of being frustrated, definitely. I also use coffee filters for mine, for my embossing powders too, because you won't use an entire jar on one project, and an entire jar will last you a very long time as well, which is an advantage to heat embossing. And so I use a coffee filter to like catch the leftovers and put it back in, but there are trays you can get that will do that. You can also just use a piece of copy paper. I just at one point had bought coffee filters for something else, and I don't drink coffee, so I ended up used the leftovers that I had from that. Oh, I know what it was. I had family over that does drink coffee, and so I had coffee filters in my house because of that, and because this was pre like Keurig days, and so we had coffee filters for them. And then I just kept the leftovers and used them for my embossing powder. I also use them for glitter and things as well too, to help keep that contained. I have no idea why that water mister is in there, and it kind of concerns me because I don't know what it is. The other thing you need when you do embossing is you definitely need to invest in some kind of pigment ink, or you can invest in specific embossing ink. This happens to be an embossing ink pen that I have from Versamark. But you can get there's all kinds of brands of embossing ink that you can have. And I've heard really good things about Brutus Monroe's embossing ink especially. I have not tried it yet, but it's on my list. I really need to remember to order myself some one of these days, because I've heard really, really good things about that. And I sometimes struggle with embossing at times. Heat embossing is not one of my go-to techniques, but it is a great thing to know how to do and have on hand as you get more into card making and things. So I want to try theirs and see if I have any, like, if that works better for me or whatever. It's just me. It's like nothing to do with any products of embossing or anything. I've just always struggled with it. It's just something I haven't quite mastered, although I have been getting better at it. So maybe it's just more practice. This is another type of heat gun. This is the Heat It tool from Ranger, and it's a little bit different. I would not use this Heat It tool. It looks like a hairdryer. This gets back to my whole using a hairdryer thing. It's almost the in-between. It's not quite it's hotter and more obnoxious, that's not the right word, but that's the best I got, than a hairdryer. It's hotter and more, like, focused, I guess, than a hairdryer, but it's not as hot as, say, like, the heat tool. So this is what I use if I'm doing, like, watercolor and things. to dry anything like wet that I need to dry somewhat quickly, that I usually like to let things air dry, but if I don't have time to do that, I will use that heat it tool. I use it for like my wax melts and stuff too. If I'm going to do a wax seal on something, I use that to heat it up because it's a little less intense than my heat gun. But you can use it for embossing. Again, you know, not recommended, but if you were only going to get one thing, maybe get the heat tool because it can get you a little bit further. So this is the first big investment that I have on my list here, which is a die cut machine. This is the Gina K Designs Intracut machine, just because this is the one that I've been using a lot right now. But there are so many different kinds out there. So, you know, there's the Spellbinders has one, Big Shot is the, you know, those are kind of like the big two. Then you start getting into like the electric machines. So like this Intracut is one where you have to hand crank it, although it's not that bad. I like this one too because it's adjustable, so I can really make it work for me very easily. And there's only 2 plates, which is also very nice. No sandwich memorizing or having to put together specific plates to do different things. It is 2 plates all the time. Sometimes even only 1 plate, and then adjusting dials on the side. It's great. I've really been enjoying this machine so far. I've had it for about 2 months now, but with the holidays, I haven't really gotten to play with it as much as I would like to, but still, it's a great machine, and right now would probably be the one that I would recommend to most people, although I don't have a ton of experience with many other manual machines. I also have an electric machine. I have a Gemini Junior. The Geminis are probably the most well-known electric machines, but I do know that there are others out there. And then you can get into like electronic machines as well, which would be like your Scan and Cut and your Cricut. But we're not going to get into those today. That is like advanced card making. So once you've invested in a die cut machine, because that is the one thing, die cut machines are an investment. They do tend to be expensive. But, you know, most die cut machines, you kind of buy them once and that's it. You may have to replace plates from time to time, because the plates will get warped and cut up and stuff as time goes on. But the plates are not usually horribly expensive, so that's relatively easy to do. But then you have all of the things you can do with it. And I'm only going to talk about a few things you can do. The basic things you can do with a die cut machine, which includes die cutting, which is what I'm showing you right now. So once you get a die cutting machine, you can start looking at dies. And then that opens up some stamp possibilities to you, because a lot of stamps have coordinating dies that let you cut out the stamped image without having to use your scissors and fussy cut or anything like that. There's basic shapes and things that you can use, and then you can get like stitching details and things like that. And yes, a lot of these things can be done by hand, so that's why I said, you know, this is kind of the upgrade, but I'm telling you, the die cut machines make it a lot easier. Then there's also this, which is our embossing folder. So we talked about heat embossing, and embossing folders do a thing called dry embossing. So they are basically folders, and you stick a piece of paper inside of them, and you run them through your die cut machine, and then you get like a 3D raised image on them, and they just are really fun for adding a little bit of texture. I really, you know, they kind of give you a tone on tone sort of like textured background, but then there's also like, and you use them in their most basic form, but there's also a lot of things you can do and a lot of techniques you can do to upgrade even that. So this one was much shorter because this is basically just like my up levels, but if you were looking to expand your card making a little bit more than just the basics we covered in last week's video, that's all the products I would recommend to be able to do it. So that's it for this video, and I'll see you next week, and we'll be one more product focused video, and then we'll be back to projects, I promise. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below, and I will see you again soon, and have a crafty day.